I used to think only reckless women traded sex for rent. Until the night I did exactly that. I was standing in my kitchen, trembling broke and barely breathing, when my landlord made an offer without words. He didn't ask. And when he was done, he zipped up and said, "You're covered for this month." This isn't just a story about sex. It's about power, loneliness, survival, and the quiet ways women lose themselves piece by piece until they no longer recognize their own reflection. Have you ever made a decision out of desperation that you never thought you'd make? Have you ever said yes just to avoid sleeping in your car? Tell me in the comments, or just write, "I understand." And if you believe real stories matter, even the messy ones, like this video, hit subscribe and stay with me. Because this story isn't over yet. After my divorce, I told myself things would get easier. No more fighting. No more walking on eggshells. Just peace and quiet and maybe a fresh start. But peace came with bills, and quiet turned into loneliness. I was 39 working night shifts as a receptionist at a local hospital in Birmingham. The hours were long, the pay was barely enough, and sleep felt like a myth. When I found a listing for a cheap studio apartment on the edge of town, I didn't think twice. The place wasn't fancy stained carpet, a fridge that hummed louder than my neighbor's TV, and a heater that worked only when it wanted to. But it was mine. Or at least it was supposed to be. The landlord, Andre Wills, was hard to forget. Tall, built like he belonged in a men's magazine, smooth voice, clean cut, always smelled like good cologne and danger. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. There was something about him, the kind of confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. The kind of man who knew how to take up space without making a sound. At first, I kept my distance, just paid my rent on time, nodded when I passed him in the parking lot. Nothing more. But things started unraveling by the second month. I'd had to cover part of my sister's medical bill. Overtime at the hospital was cut, and when the 5th of the month rolled around, I was $73.46 in the red. I remember staring at my online bank account, trying to will the numbers to change. They didn't. And deep down, I already knew what was going to happen next. Andre always checked in when rent was late. Always. There was a knock at the door. Not loud, just enough to say, "I'm here and you know why." I froze. I had just come home from a hospital shift. My uniform still smelled like antiseptic and weak coffee. My hair was tied back messy. My body ached from standing for 10 hours straight. And my bank account was still empty. I opened the door slowly. He was there. Andre Wills, white t-shirt, gold chain, dark jeans that fit just right. He leaned against the door frame like he'd been waiting for this moment all day. "Hey," I stammered, trying to sound calm, like my stomach wasn't twisting into knots. He didn't smile. He stepped inside without asking. I closed the door behind him out of habit. He turned eyes sweeping across the room, then landing squarely on me. "I was going to call you," I said quickly. "I just need a few more days." "What were you going to say?" He cut me off. His voice was deep soft, but heavy like stone. "That time pays my bills." I looked down, staring at the floor. "I'll pay," I whispered. "Just a little late, that's all." He took a step forward. I didn't move. "You've got something more valuable than money," he said. I looked up. My breath caught. "What do you mean?" Andre's gaze lowered slowly to my waist, then back up to my eyes. "You know exactly what I mean, Rachel. Don't play dumb." In that moment, it felt like I had been slapped not by a hand, but by the truth. A humiliating, raw truth I didn't want to face. Inside, my thoughts screamed, "No. This is wrong. This is abuse. This is when I throw him out." But my lips didn't move. It felt like my body had gone still, while my mind tried to run. I hated the way he said it, like I was a product he'd already picked, just waiting for me to swipe the barcode. I hated even more that part of me had seen this coming. I'd caught his eyes lingering, and I had looked back. I just didn't think it would go this far. Didn't think I'd be faced with this kind of choice, the kind people only make when they've run out of others. "I can't," I said, but it sounded more like breath than refusal. Andre stepped closer. "Yes, you can." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten, but he left no room for doubt. There was only a thin line left between wrong and survival. I don't know how long I stood there, maybe a few seconds. But to me, it felt like a lifetime. A lifetime of shame, fear, and surrender. I didn't say yes, but I didn't push him away either. And I knew. I had just said yes in the clearest way possible. He didn't speak, didn't ask again. He just stepped behind me close enough for me to feel the heat radiating from his skin. His hand moved to my waist, slow, deliberate. My breath hitched. I didn't move. I stood there frozen in place. My hands clenched at my sides. Then slowly, almost involuntarily, I reached forward and placed them against the cool tile of the kitchen wall. There was something painfully symbolic about it, how cold the wall felt, how small I felt. Behind me, I heard the soft rustle of denim, the low drag of breath, the shifting weight of intention. He lifted the back of my skirt with a quiet ease. My pulse thudded in my ears. I don't remember closing my eyes, but I must have, because I stopped seeing the kitchen, stopped seeing anything at all. What I felt instead was everything. The tension in my spine, the bite of air against exposed skin, his grip tightening on my hips, not cruel, but claiming. Each movement, unhurried, controlled like he had all the time in the world, and knew I wouldn't stop him. When he entered me, I gasped, not from pain, but from shock. From the overwhelming sensation of being filled, stretched, possessed. I bit down on my lip to stop the sound, but something still escaped, a sound I didn't recognize. Raw, desperate, honest. He moved inside me like a man with a purpose, steady, deep, unrelenting. Every thrust echoed off the cheap cabinets, rattling the spoons in the drawer. I pressed my forehead against the wall, not sure if I was trying to hide or hold myself together. The shame didn't come right away. Only heat. Only motion. Only the terrifying truth that part of me, a part I hated, wanted this. Wanted to feel wanted, not respected, not admired, just taken. When it ended, he stepped back without a word, zipped up, adjusted his shirt, looked at me like he hadn't just broken something inside me. Then he said it, "You're covered for this month," and walked out, just like that. I didn't move right away. My body felt numb, heavy, but not in the way you feel after sex, in the way you feel after surrender. I slid down the wall, sitting on the cold floor skirt, still twisted thighs, trembling, heart hammering like it didn't know what had just happened. I stared ahead, at nothing. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just breathed, shallow, shaken. And somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered, "You let him do that? And worse, you'd let him do it again." The next day, I tried to pretend nothing had happened. I showered twice, scrubbed my skin like guilt could be washed off with soap. I put on makeup for the first time in weeks, told myself I was just tired, just stressed, just broke. But when I passed Andre in the parking lot later that evening, I couldn't meet his eyes, and he didn't try to meet mine. 3 days passed. Then came the knock. I opened the door. No words, just that same stare. He stepped in, handed me a glass of wine, and nodded toward the couch. I hesitated. "What is this? The new arrangement?" he said simply. I waited. "You come when I call. You give me what I want. And in return, you stay in your apartment. Rent-free. Safe. Handled." The way he said it, calm, clean, like it was the most logical thing in the world, made it all sound less dirty. But I knew what it was, and I hated that I didn't walk away. Instead, I nodded. A single, slow nod. He pulled me toward him again that night, this time on the couch. My blouse came off easier. My hands were less hesitant. I told myself I was in control now, that I was choosing this. But the truth, I was surviving. And he became the only thing that made me feel anything. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't tender. It was need, pure and simple. His touch made me forget how empty my fridge was, how lonely my bed felt. We did it on the floor, against the stairwell wall, in the shower. Once on the balcony under the stars, like we were something wild and free when really I was neither. Each time left me shaking, not from fear, but from something I didn't want to name, something like addiction. I stopped looking at my bank balance, stopped applying for extra shifts. I didn't need more hours. I just needed him. And somewhere along the way, the guilt started to fade. Or maybe I just got used to it. I began to wait for his knock. I started sleeping in things that were easier to take off. I began checking my reflection in the mirror before answering the door. I told myself it was smart, efficient, mutual. But the truth was simpler. I didn't feel owned. I didn't feel loved. I just didn't feel invisible. And that felt like enough. Until Eli. He started about a week after everything began. Quiet, polite, kept his head down while washing trays in the hospital kitchen. The kind of man who didn't fill up a room, but somehow made it feel safer. One night, during break, he sat next to me in the staff lounge. "You okay?" he asked. I lied. Of course I lied. He smiled anyway. "You just seem, I don't know, like someone who used to laugh more." That sentence stuck with me longer than Andre's hands ever did. Later that week, Eli offered to walk me to my car, then offered to buy me tacos from the truck near the ER, then laughed at one of my stupid jokes like it was the funniest thing he'd heard all day. He didn't stare. He didn't touch. He just listened. And I remembered just for a moment what it felt like to be treated like I mattered for reasons that had nothing to do with my body. It started with a smile, a real one, small, crooked, but honest. Eli had just said something ridiculous about aliens working in hospital kitchens, and I laughed. For real. The kind that shakes your shoulders, not just your lips. It had been a long time. We were walking toward my building. He carried my leftover tacos like they were made of gold. Then he said, "You should laugh more. It suits you." That's when I saw him. Andre, standing by the stairwell, silent, still, watching. I froze. Eli didn't notice. He kissed my cheek, said goodnight, and turned away. I lingered at the bottom of the stairs, my pulse crashing against my ribs. Andre didn't move. He just stared, then turned and walked into my apartment. He had a key. Of course he had a key. I followed him in my chest tight. "You don't knock now," I asked. He didn't answer, just closed the door behind me, locked it. "You've been glowing," he said, smiling, looking around like you've got options. I folded my arms. "Maybe I do." He stepped closer. "You don't." I laughed, bitter short. "You don't own me, Andre." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "No, I don't own you, but I do own this building, and I know exactly how fast I could make your life very uncomfortable." I swallowed hard. "You've been playing house with that dishwasher," he said. "That what you want now? Some boy who smells like soap and cheap dreams." He was close now. Too close. "Get out," I whispered. He didn't. Instead, he reached for me. I tried to step back, but the wall caught me. His hands were already on me, not rough, not violent, just inevitable. My body didn't resist, but it didn't respond either. He pulled at my clothes with the same practiced rhythm he always used, like he was rewinding a scene we'd played before. Except this time, I didn't moan, didn't gasp, didn't give him anything. I stared at the ceiling. He moved inside me like always, deep, sure, steady, and I felt nothing. No heat, no shame, just a hollow ache, like being used up and still somehow expected to say thank you. When it was over, he didn't look at me. He just zipped up and lit a cigarette. "You're quiet," he said. I didn't answer. He looked over. "Where's that fire?" I turned my head, slowly met his eyes. "She died." He blinked. "You killed her." For the first time since I met him, he didn't have a comeback. He just sat there silent, smoke curling from his mouth. And I realized in that moment, not with pain, but with clarity, he never loved me. He never saw me. I was just a place to put power, something to fill, not someone to care for. It was a Wednesday. I came home from my shift just past 10 p.m. The hallway was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums in your ears. I juggled my keys, a bag of leftovers, and my purse too tired to think. That's when I saw it. A slip of paper folded torn at the edges sticking out from under my door. I bent down, picked it up, and unfolded it with fingers that had already begun to shake. "You're not the only one." That was all it said. No name, no handwriting I recognized, no explanation. Just 7 words that cracked something in my chest. I stared at it for a long time. Long enough for the hallway light to blink overhead. Long enough for the buzz in my ears to turn into a roar. I stormed upstairs. Didn't knock. Didn't pause. Andre opened the door shirtless, a drink in one hand, the remote in the other. I held up the note. "What is this?" He glanced at it, smirked. "I think it's pretty clear." "Is it true?" I asked. "Are there others?" He sipped his drink, shrugged. "Of course there are." Something inside me twisted. "But you said I said you belonged to me," he cut in. "I never said I belonged to you." That line landed like a slap. Fast, sharp, final. He didn't even look guilty. In fact, he seemed amused. "You really thought you were special," he said. "Rachel, you were just the first one to stop pretending." The glass in my hand almost slipped. I walked out before I said something I couldn't take back. Down the stairs, into my apartment, door locked, lights off. I sat on the edge of the bed, note still in hand, staring at it like it held a different answer if I looked long enough. But it didn't. It never would. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even curse his name. I just stopped. Stopped pretending. Stopped wanting. Stopped letting myself believe he saw me as anything more than convenient. He hadn't broken me that night. The note had. Because it didn't just say, "You're not the only one." It screamed, "You were never the one at all." I started pulling away. Not with words, with silence, with space. I stopped replying to Andre's messages. Stopped answering the door right away when he knocked. Stopped tidying up before he came over. Stopped wearing makeup. I began turning the lights off when I got home. Started walking straight into my bedroom, whether he was outside or not. I wasn't the same woman pressed against the kitchen wall anymore. I was drifting, but Andre didn't let go. He still came. Like clockwork. Same bottle of wine. Same unspoken rhythm. Same hands reaching for me like nothing had changed. Only everything had. One night, he let himself in again. I was folding laundry when he wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. I didn't turn around. "You're quiet lately," he whispered. I said nothing. He turned me to face him, searching for something in my eyes. But there was no spark, no heat, only emptiness. He touched me anyway, undressed me like always, guided me to the bed, slow and certain without asking. My body didn't resist, but it didn't respond either. I let him. No moans, no gasps, no eye contact, just breath. I lay still beneath him, warm flesh, nothing more, eyes open, heart silent. My soul stood off in the corner of the room, watching it happen like a stranger. When he finished, he rolled off me and sat on the edge of the bed, breathing heavy. We didn't speak. A minute passed. Then he asked almost softly, "Are you still in there?" I turned my head toward the dark window. "She's gone." Andre exhaled. Long, slow. I sat up, grabbed my sweater, and walked out of the room. He didn't stop me, didn't call after me, didn't try to pull me back, because we both knew. This time, I was really gone. He didn't come back for days. No texts, no knocks, no calls. And for once, I didn't wait for him. Instead, I started packing, quietly, slowly, one drawer at a time. I left behind the furniture, the worn-out mattress, the wine glasses I never used. I took what I needed, closed my mother's old locket, the tiny cactus Eli once gave me for no reason at all. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. There was no grand escape, no midnight chase, just silence. One night, while Andre was gone, I loaded my things into the back of my car and drove across town to a woman named Marnie, someone I met online who was renting out her spare room. She didn't ask questions. She didn't have to. I moved in with 2 bags, a tired heart, and a promise to myself that I wouldn't go back. That first night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, waiting for guilt, for shame, for some sign that I'd made a mistake. But it didn't come. What came instead was quiet. Real quiet. No fridge humming. No footsteps above. No knocking. Just my breath. Just space. And a strange sense of something I hadn't felt in months. Safety. I kept my head down for a while. Took extra shifts. Paid my share. Stayed away from anything with a fast smile or slow hands. Eli texted once. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't want to, but because I needed to learn how to be whole on my own before I let anyone touch me again. Weeks passed. The urges faded. The memories blurred. The nightmares stopped showing up every night. And one morning as I walked past the mirror half awake, I caught a glimpse of someone I hadn't seen in a long time. She wasn't perfect, but she looked steady. And more importantly, she looked free. I'm not telling this story to be pitied. I'm telling it because maybe, just Maybe there's someone out there sitting in a quiet room right now, asking herself how she ended up here. I've been her, and I need her to know. I survived. I've lived through the nights where I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I've traded pieces of my body just to buy a little more time under a roof. I believed promises that were never spoken and broke over things that were never real. But still, I got up. I walked away, and I started over. If you've ever had to choose between survival and your self-respect, I understand you. I was you, and you are not alone. I don't know what you've been through, but maybe at some point you did something you swore you'd never do, swallowed your pride just to keep a roof over your head, gave away your dignity just to hold on to a place, a person, or a dream. If so, tell me, or just type 2 words I understand, because someone out there needs to see those words. Someone needs to know they're not the only one. Thank you for staying with me to the end. If this story meant something to you, please like, subscribe, and share it. Not just for me, but maybe to save someone who's still stuck in the dark place I left behind.